This is an introduction to ProServerEX data management software from the ProFace Learning Center. So what is ProServerEX? Well, we call it an enterprise-wide data sharing and reporting system. And what we mean by that is if we take a factory situation that consists of ProFace HMI connected to a variety of devices and controllers, that we can interface that data using the HMIs as a gateway to a PC environment in an office that uses standard Microsoft applications such as Excel, SQL Server, Mail Server, or other software such as SCADA, etc. So what can we use ProServerEX for? Well, one use would be to share information using Excel. We can collect data from HMI and the connected controllers, and we can put them into pre-formatted Excel spreadsheets. Another use would be to connect devices from multiple sources on the factory floor, again using our HMI as the connectivity gateway, but in this case we only have to use ProServer to set up the data routes from A to B to C, etc. And then the ProServer node is no longer required on the network, and peer-to-peer data transfer carries on independently. We can also use it for recipe management. Our HMIs have a built-in local recipe handling system, and we can extend that to an enterprise level by using Ethernet and our ProServerEX software. Similarly, with data logging, our HMIs have a local data logging facility built in, and again we can extend that with ProServerEX to move that data up to an enterprise level for sharing, reporting, etc. Although ProServer has a wide range of functions available, they all share a common anatomy or structure. And in the rest of this presentation, we're going to show you what that basic structure is and get you up and running on your first ProServerEX application. It starts with a HMI. Could be our AGP series, our LT series, or our WinGP series. And all of those HMI applications are programmed with GPProEX software. The GPProEX application file stores all the screen data, the PLC drivers, etc., and comes as a project file with a suffix PRX. Using USB, serial, Ethernet, CF card, etc., you can transfer that project file into those HMIs. ProServerEX can then be used to generate the network functionality for those HMIs, and will generate a separate project file that sits on top of or alongside the existing GPProEX PRX file in those HMIs. To get started, we need a PC running ProServerEX, and we need an Ethernet connectivity, typically a local area network. The next step is to determine which HMIs are going to be participating in this network project, and we set those up according to the HMIs on our system. Once we've done that, we assign various actions to each of those HMIs to define their functionality on this network project, and we set triggers for those actions to define when they occur. Finally, we produce a network project file or MPX file, and we download that to all of the participating HMIs over the network. Once we've done that, we can start to add the actions, email, Excel reports, logging, CSV files, DDE, API, and a whole variety of other things. What about sending data between AGPs? In this situation, we imagine a number of HMIs connected to their various controllers that want to share data from one HMI to another, from one device or controller to another. So in this situation, we're going to use ProServer-EX to leverage the existing local connectivity of each of those HMIs. We download the GP Pro EX project to begin with. We add our ProServer-EX node with its Ethernet backbone. We specify the network connectivity of those HMIs and transfer it to each of them. And now the data is going to be passed from one to another in real time based on the specified triggers or schedules. Now the ProServer node can go away and the data can continue to be exchanged between those HMIs, and will do so without any further impact from the ProServer-EX software. So which Proface HMI units can I use with ProServer-EX? The answer is any unit with an Ethernet port that is programmed with GP Pro EX. And that would include the AGP 3000 series and the LT 3000 series when they have an Ethernet port. Also includes our PS 3000 and APL 3000 series when they have the WinGP runtime added to them. These are the PC-based HMI. What about non-AGP units? Well, we do have a range of legacy products, the GP77R series and the GLC 2000 series, ST403 and Factory Gateway, that can also be added to a ProServer-EX network. So here we see a mixed network of both old and new product, all with their core connectivity from multi-vendor control devices. One of the key features of the ProServer-EX system is that no special programming is required in order to achieve a lot of this functionality. We can exchange data with programs like Excel just using the pre-made templates, or we can use pre-built actions and triggers to perform a number of functions, including sending emails, logging to databases, etc. Or we can use the application program interface to exchange data with a PLC using Visual Basic, Visual C, etc. It all starts by configuring the participating nodes, the network nodes for the project. What is a node? Any of the Proface units, GPs, AGPs, WinGP or LT, or the ProServer PCs themselves that are on the project are called ProServer nodes. Once you've registered each of these devices, then you can trigger actions or exchange data between them. Start configuring a node by setting an IP address if it hasn't already got one. You set a TCP IP address on your PC along with a subnet mask. On an AGP or an older Proface, you also have to set an IP address by taking the AGP into an offline mode. There are a number of ways to do this, including holding one of the corners on the top on power on, or by touching and releasing opposite corners within half a second. That takes you to a menu which you can push to go offline. and then you can navigate to the Ethernet settings and set up the IP address and the subnet mask. Here's an example, 192.168.02 with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. And what that subnet mask is doing for you is saying that the only devices that will be seen on this network are the ones where the first three parameters, 192.168.0, are a match. You can check the Ethernet connection by using the command window and using a ping command to ping the IP address to see if you have a physical connection to that AGP. If there's no response, check cabling, check your settings, make sure there's no firewalls or anything else in between. Then you download your GPPro EX project, your normal HMI project in the normal way, and you start ProStudio EX. ProStudio being the design portion of ProServer EX. Create a new project and specify the nodes that are going to participate on this project. If you have the participating nodes already connected to the network, you can use the Find Node button to search for existing AGP or other HMI devices on the network. Once you have a list of all the available nodes, you can choose which ones you want to have participate and then add them by pressing the add button. At that point, you're also prompted, do you want to import symbol information from that node? This is an optional step, but it can save you a lot of time. If you say yes, it will upload the symbol list from the online HMI. You can also add nodes by hand, so if you don't have all of the connected devices available, if you're working in an office environment where you don't have all that physical connectivity, then you can add them by hand also. The maximum number of participating nodes on the network is 1022, and each node can have up to 4 drivers, as we call them, or protocols, depending on the AGP or HMI type. The older legacy devices can only have 1 driver per node. Note that that is 1 driver and not 1 connected device. Most of these drivers will support up to 16 individual device connections. Now that we've defined the participating nodes for the network project, we need to get some tags or symbols into the project. So what is a symbol? A symbol is just a name given to a PLC device or an internal address. In GPPro EX, you can actually use PLC addresses directly within objects. And that's optional. You can do it that way, or you can assign a symbol name to that address and use them interchangeably. In ProServer, you have to use a symbol name to access any other device in the HMI or in any associated PLC or device. You can get access to those symbols and variables by importing them straight into ProServer, as we alluded to when we defined the nodes. You can actually upload them directly out of the HMI itself, or you can take them out of the associated PRX file, which is usually the more reliable and beneficial way to do it. But you can also create symbols for PLC devices or other addresses that are not used in the AGP. The AGP program may have been designed for symbols that are of interest to the operator, and now we may need access to other symbols which are of interest to, for example, the plant manager. So we can add those in addition to anything we import from the application itself. Since the Pro Server node is itself part of the overall project, you can specify internal addresses on the Pro Server node, which can be a useful way to move data and create packets of data within the server node, especially if you're using the API to get the data out to a third-party program or something like that. The node names are 32 characters max, no spaces as usual. As we're about to enter the symbol information, note the symbol tab at the top of the page, and also notice that on this picture we can see the flow of how we develop a network project from start to finish. So we start over on the left with the start button. We move on to create the participating nodes for the project. We're currently going to enter the symbol addresses that are used within those nodes, and then we can add features in the form of the Swiss Army knife, add features and actions. Then we save the project and transfer it to the participating nodes, and then finally monitor the status online. So that toolbar at the top is not only a useful toolbar, but it also helps you to understand the flow of development for a network project. In this project, you can see that we have just two nodes defined. The first one is the Pro Server node itself, which is PC1, and the other is an AGP at 192.168.0.2. You can see that the Pro Server node PC1 has one sheet of symbols already defined, and that the AGP1 has 5 sheets, of which 2 are highlighted in bold and 3 are grayed out. The grayed out symbol sheets imply that these sheets have been imported from external HMI or from an external project and are therefore read-only. Here we see internal sheet number 2, which is currently blank, and on this sheet we can enter new symbols which are not used in the GP Pro EX project. We need to have at least one sheet per driver by default, and we can create more sheets if that's not enough, if we need to organize the data in a different way. And you can also create internal addresses for the Pro Server PC in internal sheet 1 there. If you imported symbols during node creation, imported symbols are grayed out, so they are read-only. You can use global sheets when you have multiple HMIs with the same driver to save you from having to recreate those symbol names each time. For example, if you have 4 HMIs that all have the same PLC and similar address usage, then you can create that symbol just one time instead of having to do it 4 times. Global constants are another shortcut way to create values that can be used throughout the project and can easily let you scale the project up or down based on increased number of machines, etc. You can create up to 140 symbol sheets per node, and you can have up to 1500 symbols per sheet. Although we have yet to define the actions and triggers that will complete this project, at this point many people like to skip over to the monitor section and to test the data connection to the HMI and prove that it's all live. All you need to do is to right-click the symbol and select the device monitor. You have to save it and download, but now you can see the data from your symbol live on screen. The monitor tool can also be used to edit values in real time from either internal memory in the HMI or any devices connected to those Proface units, or any of the logic addresses in Proface units that include the ladder logic functionality. All you need to do is to highlight the address and double click it. You can write to multiple addresses at the same time, by putting spaces between the numbers. So 1, 2, 3, we'll write a 1 and then a 2 and then a 3. Now that we've defined the nodes in the project and the symbols on those nodes, we can demonstrate how to trigger an action on the ProServer PC from a remote AGP, WinGP or LT series HMI. Those HMI are already programmed with their PRX file, all their screen data, drivers, etc. The next stage is to download the network project file to inform them of their ProServer network project duties. In this case, we're going to use a bit switch on one of the screens. The positive edge of that bit switch we'll call a trigger. That gets transmitted to the ProServer node, which responds with an action. In this case, we're going to use a very simple action. It's called Start Application, and it will basically run a program on that PC, and you can run pretty much any program that you can access from the command line prompt or from a run command from the Windows taskbar. We're going to pick the Windows calculator because it's nice and simple, and everyone has this, so it's easy to replicate for training purposes. So we move on to the Feature tab, the Swiss Army knife symbol at the top of the Tool taskbar, and we'll see Actions and Triggers. We select Action and then Add. We then choose one of the pre-built actions from the list. There's a variety of actions, some of them are shown there, including uploading and downloading JPEG, CSV files, writing and reading from databases, etc. We're going to use the one at the bottom of the list, which is Start Application, and as I mentioned earlier, that allows you to run another program on the PC, and we'll call up the Windows calculator. Once we click on that, we get a prompt to fill in an action name. We call it Start Application Example. The action name can't contain any spaces, so we're using underscore in this situation, but it can be any descriptive name that makes sense to you. And then press the action parameter button to move on to the next stage. All we have to do to complete this action is to fill in the application name, calc.exe, and include the full path to find that file. If you don't know that path, then the reference button on the side can be used to browse to find that program. With some programs there are startup options, what is sometimes called command line parameters, so that, for example, if we were opening Notepad, we could specify on the startup options a file name to open with Notepad, etc. In this case, we don't need anything else, so we just press OK and move on. Now we have to define the trigger that's going to cause this action to occur, and so we click on the New Trigger button. Again, the trigger condition has a name, and again there can't be any spaces in there, and the trigger condition in this case is triggered by the AGP node, as you can see here. There are lots of different ways to trigger an action. In this case we're going to use the bit switch, so we're going to reference the device on, and we're going to set that to trigger from an internal address called bit_switch1. Optionally, we can check a box so that the trigger bit is reset automatically after processing by ProServer. For certain types of triggers that are linked to actions, you can actually pass values to the action from the trigger. In this case, there's no need, so we just fill in a constant value of 1 and press Next. You can also choose to set a completion notification to the Pro Server node itself, which is useful if, for example, the Pro Server node is linked via API to an external program. Otherwise, we're finished, the action is complete, and we're ready to use it. Back in the action list, you see the start application example there and the trigger condition bit switch 1 pressed appearing in the list. We now have to save the program and hit save reload in order to both save the MPX project and start the Pro Server runtime on the PC, at which time you'll see a little icon appear in the taskbar in the bottom right showing that the runtime side of Pro Server is now running. We also have to transfer the network project to any of the participating nodes, in this case the AGP. Check the box for the AGP, transfer to another node. You can now test that using the bit switch on the HMI. Notice that the bit is reset by the Pro Server network project when the action is complete, because we checked the appropriate box. Also note the speed and repetition that you can achieve. There are timing aspects to this, and there are handshaking bits that define a sequence of events. You'll also find it very useful to use the Monitor Status tab to troubleshoot problems. And although there are a lot of different actions available in Pro Server EX, you'll find they all follow the same workflow that you see in the taskbar at the start. Most of the work that you do in preparing that network project is in the preparation of the node and the symbols, and then the features you can just add as necessary.